Greetings, Ginger here. We have got the most important interview that we've done so far on Fighting the Void, and that is with Andrew Pollack. Who is Andrew Pollack, you ask? You may recall back in 2018, there was a really terrible school shooting in Broward County, Florida. That was at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. There were a number of children and teachers killed. Among them was Meadow Pollack, the daughter of Andrew Pollack. And ever since then, he and his whole family have really dedicated themselves to trying to find ways to improve the security at our schools so that something like this does not happen again. And thanks to my friend Sean Blair, we had the opportunity to interview him. So myself and Crystal, we spent about an hour talking to him about the struggle that he's had trying to get things done, the successes that he's had, getting some legislation passed through at the state level in Florida, which is really, really good. It's a step in the right direction, although there's still a long, long ways to go. Now, you'll notice during the video that the software gets a little weird at times. Sometimes one or more of us are showing up twice, and it's a little choppy. The connection wasn't the best. So forgive that a little bit. And I hope you'll be able to still enjoy and learn a lot from this video. In the near future, I plan on putting out a strictly audio version of this, just so that you don't have to sit and watch the choppy video. You can just take in the audio. So all that being said, sit back and enjoy. And again, this is easily the most important show we've done. So for the benefit of the audience, this is Andrew Pollack, and he is the father of Meadow Pollack, one of the victims of the Parkland shooting back February 14, earlier this year, 2018. And ever since then, he has been on a crusade to fix the schools, to fix security in the schools, and try to approach common sense solutions that we really should all be able to agree on. So again, officially, thanks a lot for coming on, taking the time to talk about this.
Sure.
As a father of several kids myself, and my oldest actually just entered high school this year, I have a sense of the importance of this. And well, first of all, I guess to refresh everyone's memory on exactly what went on and everything, we know we know that there was a lot of controversy around the school and everything with Sheriff Israel, with the board and everything, and there was a lot of dropping the ball, a lot of missed warning signs leading up to the shooting. And has there been any movement there? Any sort of success in getting accountability?
Oh, that's what I feel like I'm the only person, like a one man wrecking machine here in Broward. Because there's a lot of people. What got me my daughter getting murdered got me involved with it. That'll get you involved with something.
Yeah.
And then just all the focus after the shooting was mostly about guns and gun control.
As it seems to be with every single one.
Yep, for 20 years that's been it, and nothing's happened. There's been no change.
Right. Honestly, I kind of stopped thinking that there would be after Sandy Hook. After Sandy Hook happened, that was
Virginia Tech. Rob, you can't talk here. Or Virginia Tech or Columbine. You'd think there would have been some changes and hardening to the schools, but really, even to this day, any student in most schools could walk right into the school with any type of weapon, and if he wanted to commit an evil act, he could do it.
And this is largely true. Many of where I'm at, there is some rudimentary security at many of the schools, both public and private. But it's, in all fairness, it's highly rudimentary. It's they check to make sure that you're a familiar face before they open the door during school hours, and really that's about it. And that's only after drop off. You know, once everybody's kind of in the school, then they lock the doors. But before that, while everybody's coming in,
Yep.
there,
There's a
there is a
warning, and there's parents are just dropping their kids off, and they can't get into the school because it's locked. So there's got to be at least 100, 150 kids lined up in front of the school with no SRO. The SRO doesn't show up till some way after 9 o'clock, and the parents are just okay with it, dropping their kids off, 100 and something kids in front of the school with no security.
yeah,
And that's from Douglas, where the shooting took place.
honestly, that's a little amazing that there's so little consideration so close to one of these tragic shootings, that so close the parents aren't thinking about it at all. And I mean, I'm thinking about it, and
Yeah,
you
got
we're-
to
yeah,
think, because everyone out there was like me. Oh, it can't happen to me. How's
Right.
it? I'm going to go to the school, and she's safe. But there's parents a mile from the school dropping their kids off at this middle school, one after the other, lining up right in the parking lot. A couple of 100 kids in the morning with no security, and they just keep dropping them off every morning. I pass by there.
that's crazy. Have you been, out of curiosity, have you been in contact with anybody there to discuss that at all, to kind of bring it to their attention?
I mentioned it once, and I don't know. I feel like I'm living in Broward County, and I can't even. It's like Broward County is the third most Democratic county in the country.
Okay.
And I did what most people never do. I ran a campaign in Broward to change the school board. The primaries were in August, and I
Okay.
gave it my all in Broward to get the school board where we would be able to have a majority of votes, so we could actually make a change in Broward. And I gave like 3 months of my life and soul into this campaign to make a change for Broward. And Broward was okay with the same people there running it. My candidate, who was more qualified than any other candidate in the school board, we came up short, and they decided to keep the same people with the same policies that led up to February 14th in the school board. And there's every day there's another article coming out of how incompetent the school board is in Broward. And they all voted, they all voted Democrat, And I'm when it comes to school board, it shouldn't be about it's a nonpartisan race.
No.
But
Yeah.
here in Broward, you could have Satan himself on the ticket as a Democrat, and you could have Jesus Christ as a Republican, and the people of Broward are going to vote for Satan, Democrat. Even in a school board race, when they didn't do what was righteous. They picked their party ahead of what was right for the children and the teachers. And I got pretty much disgusted with that, because I would never do that. I would never pick my party over what was righteous. And the people of Broward did.
No, that is distressing, because the as you said, the incompetence of the school board this is no secret. Anyone who's followed this at all should be well familiar with the fact that they missed every single warning sign. They had every opportunity to prevent this. And the idea that partisanship, especially in the face of like what you're trying to do with AmericansForClass.org, it's explicitly nonpartisan in your approach.
When it comes to our children and our teachers' safety, it shouldn't be what party you're affiliated with. It should be what's right for the kids and the children. It shouldn't be about focusing on gun control. It shouldn't be focusing on party. It should be focusing on what's best for our kids and our teachers right now. What could we do at the schools right now to make them safer? And what Broward didn't do that. They have actually the same people working in the school board. Some of them actually got raises in Broward County, the administrators. The person that did the threat assessment on 18-19-58, we'll call him, that's his prison ID number. That person got a raise in Broward, who did his threat assessment. And what we could get into also is the policies brought to Broward from the superintendent that promotes underreporting and not reporting crimes that are committed in the school district, which I feel is running rampant right now in Broward with underreporting, and it really does the children a disservice by not introducing them to the judicial system when they're under 18. I
Right.
think if they were introduced to it at a younger age, they would learn their lesson and not want to do it when they get older. So
Sort of
what
a
they're doing is the opposite. In Broward,
Yeah.
felony rates from children, adults from 18 to 25 has skyrocketed in Broward, but they don't. The mentality of Broward doesn't seem to see that, where I do, because I speak to the sheriff's union on a daily basis.
Right. Now, I'm curious, is everything we're talking about here, the missteps of the board, missteps of the sheriff's department and everything, is that common knowledge amongst the community in Broward County, or or most of them just unaware? Is this not getting covered by like local news? I'm curious.
But it's really, I came to the conclusion that maybe people just don't care because it's in the papers every day. I preached it all through the campaign. The sheriff has gotten there was 2 tips to the sheriff's office that this kid was going to be a shooter. They reassigned the deputies. They don't, nothing happens to them. The deputy that didn't go in the building that day, he was able to resign with his pension. There's numerous articles every day almost about how they mismanage money. The FBI dropped the ball. His mental health counselors, they dropped the ball. And it's all out in the open, but it just seems there's a very small minority of people that actually care. And it's really, it hurts me because that's how society is going in that direction. People honestly, they just don't care.
Yeah, it does. Honestly, it does seem to be a general lack of. There seems to be a widespread apathy, if anything, which is distressing. But that's a significantly wider issue. Now I kind of want to talk about what specifically it is that you're advocating with Americans for Class. First of all, CLASS is an acronym. What does that stand for?
Children's lives and school safety. Because eventually, I'd like to focus too on the opiates problems for children. So that's why I like to incorporate children's lives and school safety down the road.
Makes sense.
Big problem, the opiates. What's going on? There's like, I don't know, 200, 300 deaths a day of kids. Those, I think, to opiates. But my numbers could be wrong. Someone who lost their daughter, a friend of mine told me that's about the number.
Oh wow! And well, I don't want to go too much into the into the friend situation, but is this largely through like overprescription, misprescription, or is this like stuff on the street? I'm just curious before we get into the school stuff again.
Me about it because I've really been focusing on schools.
Fair enough.
But I just going to incorporate that because we could do a lot with everything with Americans for Class. I don't want to just because I want to focus on children's lives also and safety. So a lot of it. They're getting in the medicine cabinets. A lot of kids, people get a prescription for pain pills, and then they put it in the cabinet, and they forget about it.
Mom and dad's
that way.
And
prescription drugs and stuff like that. But it's something that we definitely need to focus on that also.
Agreed. But now with Americans for Class, you've got a number of proposed measures that every school should enact in order to secure themselves. What are some of those?
Well, as I've been more and more, I learned, from what I went through, and my biggest thing is one of it is parent involvement. Parents they took education away from the parents now, and it's run by bureaucrats. A lot of bureaucrats and like the school boards, and they're running education, and parents they're not involved as much as like when I was growing up. They took an interest more, and it's just, I guess that's how society is too. Now you have both parents have to work. They're not focusing more, they don't have the time to to look into their kids' education and the policies that go on at the schools. Because that policy, that's the policy that led up to the kid that killed my daughter never getting arrested, and that policy is in Broward County, and they call it the Promise Program. So it's very important to get involved with your kids and the community and see what's going on, because there's options. You got virtual school, you got charter schools and private schools, and if you're in Florida, but they have a voucher program in Florida that helps with if you can't afford private school. There's certain money, like the state of Florida, it's about $20 million for families in vouchers to be able to send them to private school. So parents should explore their options if they're not so happy with just sending their kids to a public school, because there are options.
Yeah, and that's actually great. I didn't know about Florida's voucher program, and that's something that, frankly, I would love to see nationwide, is that so that, you could send your kid to another private school that, in addition to other things, might have better security. And
well, about that now, because it means a lot to me to have choice for parents.
Right.
It's the governor's race now in Florida, and it's pretty. It's Andrew Gillum, the Democrat, socialist, and Ron DeSantis, who's a Republican. He's running for office also. So Andrew Gillum is against those vouchers of freedom of choice for parents. Where yes, horrible, you know what I mean? And so, because I know about it, because I was just last week I went to the temple that I belong to, and I was talking to the rabbi. They run like a yeshiva for very religious children, and that school gets $1.3 million to help fund it and send kids to the school. And he was worried about it at the temple, and he was talking to me, you got to talk to Ron DeSantis. We really need to get him in to be governor, because Gillum's is all about sending your kid to a public school, because they're all about that teachers union, which doesn't really represent teachers, but he wants the money going to the public schools so they could control it there with the union and the school board and that route. But where Ron DeSantis is, he's for freedom of choice and charter schools. Charter schools are great. I work with some charter schools in town. Parents should look into that. They don't have to deal with the same policies as the school boards. So it's run more like a business, more of a capitalism, which means a lot to me. Yeah,
my own children actually go to a charter school. And
great.
And Crystal, you actually went to a virtual school. Is that correct?
Yeah, I went to a charter school for 8 years, and for the last 3 years, 4 years, I think 3, because I graduated a year early. The rest of my school career was virtual schooling, and it's really, they're not just taking away the freedom of choice from the parents, they're taking it away from the kids as well, because kids work it better in different environments. Like for me, even though I was more stressed out, so I was more stressed out, so I didn't exactly do as well as I did in my last 2 years of school as I did previously, but I worked better in virtual school because I'm more of an independent worker, and that was just a better environment for me. While other students work better with other kids around them, so charter or private or public would be better.
Yep, and the thing I like, charter school is run as a business, so they want to make the education process better. They want word of mouth. They want people coming to their charter school. They want it safer. Just alone where I am in Broward, they're all doing single point of entries, uniforms. A lot of kids need that structure, and it's what they do. Where in a public school, you're not going to get that. And what's interesting too, while we're talking about charter schools, we started a pilot program in Broward County with Charter Schools USA. We have a program called Class Watch. It's on my website. Class Watch is like Neighborhood Watch, but where parents get involved at the schools, where they could come at drop-off and be an extra set of eyes at drop-off and dismissal, and greet the kids and just see the kids and just be a little perimeter. They'll have a radio to talk to the police officer or the office and just greet the kids, and that's it, and be an extra set of eyes at the schools. And we tried it with the public school, and we got no answer from the public school, but the charter schools, they're all for it.
That's great. And you would think with the public schools and everything that at least would be something that they would be willing to like just sign directly onto, because it's entirely volunteer. It doesn't cost any money on their part. It's just saying, yeah, parents, maybe they have to shell out for a radio, as you say, and that's about it.
That's it. And the parents would be lining up to be able to do that. Parents that have because it's only an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon. So a parent could give 2 hours, and that's a day. How many parents could give 2 hours for the month and just be in school? It would have stopped the shooting with my daughter. You know what I mean? They would have had a competent person there just watching, be there, and he wouldn't have passed them. They would have stopped it. So it really can make a big difference at these schools, this Class Watch program that we're piloting.
Yeah, and that's just a simple thing, extremely low-cost measure that I know as far as my schedule allows, yeah, absolutely.
Your kids go to a charter school?
I'm sorry, what?
Your children go to a charter school?
Yes, sir, yeah.
Don't they, you have to do like a certain amount of hours volunteering per year? It
varies from school to school, and this school doesn't really have that requirement. It's kind of it's actually a publicly funded charter school. It's kind of an interesting mix.
Yeah.
But like the private school that we went to before, they actually did have certain requirements for volunteer hours and all of that. So yeah, I'm certainly familiar with the concept.
And I just know a lot of the private schools wouldn't put up with the disciplinary leniency that the public schools do.
This is 100% true. Yes.
I coach at a Catholic school in Fort Lauderdale, Lacrosse.
Okay. Yep.
And the kids there are so humble, they know that they're just going to get expelled. They know the consequence.
Right.
Where public school, there's no consequence or accountability in Broward. So it just creates a terrible culture for the teachers, and even the students that want to go there and learn.
Yeah, and the same thing exists actually where I'm at, even though, this is a pretty old school traditional community where I'm at, but even there, the private schools, there's a distinct difference in how the kids behave versus how they're allowed to behave in the public schools, and that's something that I've learned talking to teachers and parents whose kids have had to leave the private school and move on to like a public school setting due to for like high school and that sort of thing.
The problem we have with the public school is with their bureaucracy and their leniency. They're so worried about the small minority of kids that have these problems, and they're not worried about the majority of the kids that want to go there and just be regular kids and learn. And I'm not saying don't take care of the kids. The kid that had that mental illness that killed my daughter. But he should have never been in that school with my daughter. He sent off every red flag, and they're worried about this one kid, right? But what about the 3,000 kids that were at that school that are kids right here, like your children, that want to just go and learn and have a good time with their friends and go out on a Friday night to a football party and just enjoy life. But they're so worried about what's going to be with this kid that they don't take into the situation of all the other 3,000 kids at the school.
Exactly. You coddle one at the...
Yeah, if I would have known this psycho was at the school, I never would have had my daughter there.
Yeah, exactly. Now, your organization, you propose a lot of other things as well, not just volunteer parents, but you're advocating for hiring like veterans and retired police officers and everything.
Florida bill, that Senate Bill 7026, we got passed weeks after with the help of Governor Scott. He's running for the Senate. A big part of that bill was named after one of the coaches that ran into the building unarmed. His name was Aaron Feist, and he went into that building that day unarmed, and he got murdered, and we named a part of that bill the Aaron Feist Guardian Program, where he part of it is training the right personnel to work at schools.
Yeah, and that what kind of response have you got on that from talking to people?
Great. So you know, in Broward, they voted, if you could believe it, it was voted 9-0 against having trained personnel at the school. Armed 9-0. So I went. I don't really deal in Broward that much. I go to some other companies that have ideologies like I do.
Gotcha.
And
Yep.
they got it right away. I went up there. I worked with the school board, the sheriff. They got it passed. So in Polk County, Florida, every school was ready for the school year, elementary to high school, with trained armed guards. 30% of them, 30% of them were veterans. Another 30% was retired law enforcement, and the other 30% were people that could pass, you know, just civilians. But to be honest, 40%, it's so difficult, the course, that 40% would fail out. So eventually, Broward voted again to pass it because they had to comply with the law in Florida that every school have an armed guard. So eventually they had to comply.
Okay, so it got passed. So it is part of state law now that they need to have an armed guard.
I know the last time I checked, 21 counties in Florida had the guardians in it. And some people just can't figure it out, some of these counties.
Okay, well, that's fantastic that you've had that level of success already. Now, just to be clear, we are talking about not just any teacher or if anything that decides, hey, I want to be able to carry a gun to school. We're talking about people who know what they're doing, who are experienced, and if they don't already have the background, they've got to go through something, that they've got to go through a program that will give them that level of competency that they need.
Yes, but to tell you the truth, like after seeing it,
Mm-hmm.
how tough the course is,
Yeah.
you know, it's very difficult to pass this class. I'm telling you, like 40% wash out.
Wow.
And it's about 140 hours. So it's not like the media wants to make you think that you're going to send like a home ec teacher for the weekend. You know, if you watch CNN, they'll say, okay, we'll send the home ec teacher to this class for the weekend, and then Monday we're going to send her in with a firearm to the school. So it's the furthest from that. It's a 140-hour course with so much training, specifically for school scenarios. Well, my son was, are you there?
Yeah.
Can you see me?
Yep, I can see you. You froze up for a second there, but we're good.
Hey, you see me or no?
Not now. I can still hear you.
There you go.
Okay, there we are.
Yeah, so it's specifically for school scenarios, how they train these women and, you know, men and women.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen it. They have houses, they call them sim houses, where they put them through rooms and they train them. They train them going upstairs. They have a simulator for school scenarios on a projection, you know, like you're watching like a TV, and they put you through the building.
Wow.
And they hold it to a higher accuracy than regular deputies. They have to shoot more accurate than a regular deputy. So if any teacher was able to go through that and pass it, I'd be okay with it. You know, that's how difficult it is, and I'd want it. If a teacher wanted to go and do that and get a stipend, you know, for working, and they passed it, they're so highly trained, but at the end of that 140 hours, that any parent that watches it should be okay with that.
Yeah, honestly, that sounds pretty darn impressive, actually.
The media made it all about, we're going to arm teachers.
Right.
It's really nothing like that. It's the furthest from that. But and it's very high. The training's immense. You know, I couldn't tell you how good the training is.
I work at a power plant where we have a nuclear power plant, actually, where
Started hard, so I can't hear you now.
No, that's right. I work at a nuclear power plant, and we have a lot of armed security, obviously, and honestly, that sounds more rigorous in many ways than the program our security officers have to go through.
Hold on.
Talk about, like, you already mentioned single point entry, metal detectors, and things like that. Now, I know we've kind of addressed some of the criticisms that have come across with you, and how they're largely unfounded. One of the criticisms I've heard of that approach is, you know, creating a bottleneck and a target. It occurs to me not unlike the school that you mentioned, where they're gathering outside a locked door.
Okay, get the call. Yeah. Well, think about it. Are you there?
Yeah.
Go to the courthouse. There's lines at the courthouse. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
You ever hear anyone lining? You know what I mean? You could always fight something wrong with anything.
Mm-hmm.
But so they have to have a guard out in front. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I go to the courthouse, I wait online. You're at the airport. There's a long line when you go through security.
Mm-hmm.
So of course there's not going to be any difference at school. They got to take that into consideration.
Basically suck it up and deal with the fact that it's going to take you 5 minutes more to get into school.
But don't you leave early now to get on a flight?
Exactly. This is entirely true.
Courthouse, if you know it's going to be a line, you're going to leave early so you don't miss them when they call your name inside the courtroom.
Yeah.
Well,
Or the plane, it's the same thing.
Well, I guess where the concern comes in is that because it hasn't been that long since I was out of school, and even then I remember, because in middle school I had to deal with going to lockers and carrying a bunch of stuff to my classes, and I think where the concern comes in of the bottleneck worry is that most schools only start letting you in at a certain time.
Yes.
So, and then after that, you have only a short period of time to go to your locker, put away stuff, grab stuff, and then go to where your class is, and your class can either be close by or it can be far away. And I think where the concern comes in is like, okay, so if we have this thing and say something happens where something gets detected, and even though it ends up being an innocent thing, what's going to happen when you arrive early, but you still have to wait because they only let you in at a certain time. You go in, something sets off the detector, they have to figure it out, and it could potentially cause a backup. So it's like, what would be the solution to that? Having schools start letting students in earlier, or?
What's the solution? Society has changed since I went to school. And it's just something that you're going to have to deal with. You know, you're going to have to go. They're going to have to open up earlier.
Right.
It's the same thing after 9/11. What happened with the planes? You go
Mm-hmm.
2 hours early to the airport now.
Mm-hmm.
No one in their right mind would ever want kids to go through this. But what's the alternative? You're not safe in the school, or you're in the school and you're safe. You know that everyone that went through that school can't get in that school. You know, no kid. I don't think it's right that society accepts doing active shooter drills in the school. To me, it's unacceptable. We shouldn't have to. Kids and teachers should not be subject to doing that in their school. That's accepting a situation like that. To me, it's not acceptable. When my kid got murdered, but when a kid goes to school and a teacher, they shouldn't have to worry about someone coming into the building, walking down the hallway, and being able to shoot them. The building should be a safe place to go to school. It should not be in a kid's mind that they have to do a drill where someone could get in the building and shoot them. So that's my feelings on the whole thing with these active shooter drills. I don't think there's a way that kids could feel safe in a school without the metal detectors. So I'm for metal detectors.
Yeah.
I'm for teachers feeling safe when they're in a building. Yeah. And I think unless there's another way they could do it, I'm not an expert at it, but I would want children and teachers, when they're in there learning geometry, they're not thinking about someone being able to walk in the hallway and kill them.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I can say again, I work at a nuclear power plant. We've got security. We have metal detectors, and I go through them every day. And we cycle hundreds of people through said metal detectors and everything every morning and every afternoon. Well, we don't have to go through them on the way out, obviously, but it's. Are there sometimes backups? Yeah, you betcha. But for the most part, it goes pretty smoothly, and it's not just metal detectors where we're at. We've got explosive detectors as well that we have to go through, and
there's other too.
Yeah.
Dogs. You could have dogs. That check. Dogs could smell for gunpowder. They're pretty good, but because I'm not an expert, but I would just think that when you're in a school, we owe it to kids and teachers to be safe when they're in the school sitting there.
Right.
So however to do it, whatever means possible, that's what we should be working on.
Yeah, and again, having kids, I completely agree. And while normally, whenever there's anything on the ballot that says, "Hey, give us more money for this," I'm like, no. But for this,
Broward,
I'll give some shekels out.
voted, they gave them money. They actually voted for money to give these people more money, the incompetent. They couldn't handle 800 million bond money. And on the ballot in August at the primaries, people voted to give them more money.
Right.
So you can't give these, if they're already incompetent, why give them more money? But this is Broward County.
That was something I actually think I saw mentioned on your website too. That and looking to implement this stuff for more safety and whatnot, you discovered, or someone discovered, that there were a lot of schools, specifically public schools, I think, where their security spending, they still had a lot left over and money that they could use. They were underusing the money they had. So I think just them using more of that to put, which makes it even more interesting that they give such a hard time to implement some of this stuff. Like even just having parent volunteers, like they, if there's money that's not being used, then why not use it for stuff? And it's like, is it just like the culture in some of these public schools? Like, is it some of the parents too, where it's like the parents are disinterested or something? I don't know what it is. I'm actually kind of making me raise eyebrows.
Failed leadership in Broward, from the superintendent to the school board. There was money put aside for fire alarms. That's what I think you're referring to. And a young adult, Kenneth Preston, who works with me and for class, he helps me on the website, the accountability section. He uncovered that there was $100 million that was supposed to be sent and allocated for Marjorie Stoneman Douglas for a new fire alarm system that would put a delay so someone could actually check to see if there was really a fire before the alarm went. So the way my daughter was murdered, she was on the 3rd floor, and so the shooter came in on the 1st floor. He fired about 90 rounds between the 1st floor and the 2nd. When you fire a firearm, there's an exhaust. Smoke comes out because there's a little explosion. Every time a bullet goes, it's an explosion. So there was smoke. The smoke from the shots being going off set the smoke alarms off. So my daughter's teacher, she's just, her IQ was the worst ever possible you could ever have. So 90 rounds go off. My daughter texts her boyfriend. There's shots going off, gunshots in the building, right? And then she texts, "Oh my God, now I hear the smoke alarm." So my daughter's teacher lets her out into the hallway with the 90 rounds that went off, without thinking. Just because the fire alarm went off, she says, "Let's go." She lets all her kids out into the hallway to get shot in the hallway. Where other teachers, they with more of a brain, they let their kids stay in the classrooms and they saved them. Where my daughter's teacher, just lack of training, lack of IQ, and just no common sense. Those 3 things, you put them together, disaster. And she let my daughter out into gunfire because she heard the smoke alarm going on. So, and then she shot 9 times.
So even something so simple as an upgraded smoke detector.
They didn't do it. They didn't upgrade it. It would have been a delay to make sure there really was a fire, and she wouldn't have got let out into the hallway because the fire alarms went off. And they didn't spend it, and all the same people are there. And the only way to expose it now, I thought we would be able to expose it if we won the school board race, but we didn't. So now I have a wrongful death case going against the deputy that didn't go in the building. Right. So through my wrongful death case, I'll be able to expose everything that went wrong inside that school that led up to the 14th.
And get it part of the public and legal record.
Yeah, that's it. It didn't work with the campaign and politics. So maybe in the court system, I could expose it through the court system.
Now, I'm curious. I'm sure you've been contacted by people all around the country. Have you been hearing from other people who have similar money mismanagement issues in their own school districts? Because I got to think that Broward ain't the only one.
Well, I've been in touch with the families in Santa Fe, that where that shooting was in May.
Okay.
10 people were murdered. And I really haven't been looking into the money, about the mismanagement of the money. I'm more interested in who didn't do their jobs and exposing them, and the people that just let everyone down, and the underreporting and no reporting, and how all this happened. And they have similar situation in Santa Fe with the underreporting of bullying and crimes. So I'm in touch with the families out there on a daily basis in Santa Fe, working with them. They have similar issues, but like I said, money, that'll come out in the case with the fire alarms. We're looking into that, but mostly is I want to expose the incompetence in Broward that let my beautiful daughter get murdered that day.
Yeah, and I hate to think that this is actually much more widespread than just Broward or Santa Fe, and I'm sure it is.
It's the diversionary programs.
Yeah.
These programs came when Obama was president. Right. He had Arnie Duncan was the Secretary of Education. Superintendent Robert Runcie, worked in Chicago for Arnie Duncan. And my luck, he came from Chicago. Broward County was, they had a large school-to-prison pipeline. A lot of kids, a lot of minorities and at-risk youth were getting arrested. And they thought that their idea, what would be to do the right thing, was to come to Broward, send Superintendent Runcie from Chicago, where it's a mess in Chicago. But he came and brought these policies here to Broward of let's not hold kids accountable. Let's put them into a program that doesn't arrest them, and we try and rehabilitate them. Which, if it was implemented correctly, I would be okay with it. But the way they implement it is they give them multiple crimes per school year, and then it creates a whole culture throughout the whole school district of not reporting crimes because they're pressured from the administrators down. And so that's what it creates, this whole culture, and it doesn't work with no accountability. And if the teacher says boo, the teacher, if they don't like what's going on, the next year they have 1-year contracts. The next year they come back in, they got the worst class with the worst students. So it's definitely going. It's definitely across the country, these diversionary programs.
And it's treated like like the crime reporting and everything. Sounds like it's treated essentially like a performance indicator, and it is manipulated accordingly.
Yeah, they know they work the numbers, and there was funding for it, to participate, and they're still pressured. School districts are still pressured to implement these policies that are in place in Broward. I'm trying to get rid of them.
That's one of the things that gets me, that we seem to keep coming back to, is the fact that there were millions of dollars just sitting there waiting to be used to address some of these things, and for whatever reason, no one's doing it.
Here you go. You got most of these board members. They're really they're not qualified. Just think about this. Broward County, the budget for 1 year for Broward County schools is $4 billion. Wow. Okay, these school board, $4 billion. Could you imagine?
Yeah.
So they got a school board member making $40,000 a year. If you had a company making it was a $4 billion a year company, are you going to have someone for $40,000 running your company?
No.
No. So they have these people that, they're running it. They hire this superintendent that came from Chicago, and it's just a mess. The money's mismanaged. The policies are horrendous. All the budgets are, they had like construction. They had a bond, $800 million bond. It's all mismanaged. All the projects are behind. So now the projects are 50% more, to get completed, and they're all behind. And now they're just going to blame, well, we have no money. We have no money. We can't finish the projects. That's what they do.
Yeah. Yeah, and then they ask for more, and so on and so forth. Yep. Unfortunately, I know the way that game is played all too well. Having been in the military and just paid attention, to the way things are done and the way your average campaign goes. It's and they always anytime anybody wants more money, or
Yeah.
or doesn't want to cut taxes. It's, well, we got to take it away from schools and fire departments.
Yeah. And the teachers. The teachers get hope too.
They do.
But you know what? In our campaign, I have no. I don't really. The teachers didn't come out and help us, so I don't care really what happens to these teachers in Broward County. We had a campaign. We had like 4 teachers come out and help us. 2 or 3 of them that were in the building that day that witnessed the shooting, and then another couple other teachers, because we were up against the teachers union, who really they hired people. This teachers union hired people to come argue with us at the polls. Early voting. They would just hire these people to come. They don't represent the teachers because the teachers, they don't want those diversionary programs in the schools because they want kids held accountable. Yep. So the teachers union doesn't represent the teachers, but the teachers didn't speak up because they're so worried. I don't know. They're worried about their jobs, which I guess that was important to them. They had to worry about their jobs, so they couldn't come out and support putting new board members in the school.
That's another great point. My wife's family has got a couple of teachers in it, and one of them retired a couple of years ago, in part because of the issues she was having in the classroom, where the policies prevented her from acting in a sort of disciplinary fashion with the kids. And where she was, it was a rougher area where that's something you should really be concerned about.
Well, in some of the rougher areas, the schools are better for security.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
In cities, you don't really hear about the shootings in the schools. A lot of them have the metal detectors. They have the security trained. Your kids are actually safer in some of those schools than out in the suburbs. That school where my daughter went was rated one of the safest schools in the country.
Huh. Yeah.
It's got to be a situation of in the suburbs there's this false sense of security, and like, oh, we're in the suburbs. It's the case you hear all the time with like murders in like small towns where it's like everyone never locked their door until one day someone was murdered and they realized this could happen here too. It's a common thing that happens all over the place across the country.
Santa Fe was a suburb. I went to Santa Fe after the shooting. I met with a couple of the families out there, and it's just a regular small town, just like Parkland was. No one could ever figure what happened there.
Yep. Now, I know you've been out. You've spoken with the president about some of this a couple of times. Is there anything coming at the federal level that you're?
They're on the commission.
Okay.
He put his cabinet members in a safety commission for schools. They just came out with an app in Florida.
Okay.
The Attorney General, there's an app like for See Something, Say Something.
Okay.
App that goes to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, so children or a parent could go on the app and report something suspicious. But really, I want the president to put an end to those diversionary programs with Secretary DeVos. No school should not have these because I see what it creates, what it did in Broward.
Right.
If that wasn't in place, that kid would have been arrested before the shooting, and he never would have been able to buy a rifle. So the gun laws, I tell people, all the gun laws were in place February 14th. If people acted or did their jobs or cared, the sheriff's office was at his house over 40 times. You're telling me? And they signed on to this diversionary program, the sheriffs. So poor leadership with the sheriff for not having a protocol in place like other counties, where after 3 times someone's getting arrested. They go to a house or a supervisor goes out and they tell them right off the bat, if we come back to this house, someone's getting arrested. So they were actually to this kid's house 40 times, never arrested or Baker acted. If he would have even been Baker acted once, a full Baker act where he was hospitalized, went through the courts, he never would have been able to buy a rifle. There's in his medical records, they were actually talking about they couldn't find a hatchet one summer, the kid, at his house. During the summer, they couldn't find a hatchet, but in the fall, they let him go to school with my daughter, and those kids, he was allowed to go to school, but they were worried over the summer that they couldn't find his hatchet that was in the house. So it's just
Yeah.
Flag and all that, and poor leadership in Broward, from the sheriff to the mental illness to the school board to the administrators to the FBI, everywhere.
It's astonishing. Sheriff Israel is actually still in office. Is that correct?
Correct.
That honestly, that blows my mind.
2 votes of no confidence I deal with the union because the union voted no confidence. I'm actually going to meet with the union on Friday with Congressman DeSantis. They gave him his endorsement because he's for holding local government accountable for when things like this happen, and that means a lot to me. So I've been endorsing Ron DeSantis just for holding people accountable.
And just as it should be the local government that deals with this. It shouldn't be that hard. Now,
no, people need accountability, and it just over here there's none in Broward, so it hurts me a lot because look what happened here to me.
Yeah. Now with Americans for Class, how is that network growing? Are you getting a lot of volunteers nationwide, or how is that developing so far?
Well, we've been helping the families out in Santa Fe all the time. We're putting out newsletters to educate parents. That's my thing, really. I just want to educate parents to get involved. You know, that's the whole thing. How they could get involved, what they could do at the school. They could do a class watch, volunteer. Grandparents could go to a school and be a set of eyes. You don't need to be physically in shape or anything. All you need is to be able to press a button on a radio and be able to see who's coming in and out of the school. So parent involvement with the school boards. Who's running your school boards? Do they have ideology like you do? Are you okay with what they're doing? You know, you go to the meetings, you listen. And it's okay to send your kid to a virtual school or a charter school. There's options. You got to look at all those things. So I want to educate the best I can. I can't control school boards, but I can educate parents.
Absolutely. And I took a look at it. I went through the website, reading through all the proposed legislation and everything, and there's nothing there that I would possibly disagree with. Everything is, in fact, common sense. It should be simple. It should be easy. Are there difficulties with certain things? Yeah, you bet. Of course there are. And I understand it's possible to volunteer and join the organization. Is that correct?
Yeah, you could call up. You could sign up for our newsletter at americansforclass.org, and we could walk you through a lot of things. And we have an accountability section. If parents have questions that they could send us, and we'll get a response out to them.
That's fantastic, and I strongly encourage anyone who's listening to take advantage of that opportunity because, like I said, everything looks like it's a really good, simple, common sense program with things that can be done literally right now. And
right now, parents should be doing it and getting involved.
Yeah, and in all honesty, you don't even necessarily. You don't even really need to have an official program to just hang out by the school a little bit and just keep an eye out, man.
Drop your kid off and stay there. See how it looks in an hour.
Yeah.
See how, if you feel safe, how they're letting kids in, how they're letting people in and out of the school. There's things you could do, and the policies. You got to look into everything.
Yeah, actually, gosh, there was an incident just like that at our school recently. As a matter of fact. My wife texted me. She's like, "There's some dude walking around outside the school with a sword."
Really?
I was like, "I'm like, what?" She's like, "Yeah, call the cops or, now."
Was it a student?
What's that?
Was it a student?
I don't think it was a student or anything. It was just some random guy. He was gone by the time anybody saw or could do anything.
Yeah. That was over too good by my house.
No. That's kind of. Well, it's kind of strange. It might have been innocent. There's a park right near the school.
Those Trekkies.
What's that?
He was one of those Trekkies. He had one of them.
It could have been. It could have just been a nerd going to meet with his other nerd friends to practice in the park. I don't know. Or it could have been a psycho waiting for an opportunity at recess.
Good. Never know. You got to think that. The way society is, you can't be overcautious.
Yeah, I would much rather be safe than sorry and call the cops. And if a guy's got to answer some uncomfortable questions, so be it.
Yeah. And I'd also say that even students should look into what you're doing and the website and whatnot, because it'd be wise for students to just educate themselves on this stuff and learn and see what people like you are trying to do to better their safety when going to school.
We encourage students to write us because we have that accountability section where we could point them in directions if they want to look into their school board and see if the money is getting appropriated to the right places.
Very good.
Help them do that. Some kids really like looking at numbers, and we have the accountability section where we have that student that would he's really interested in looking in that type of stuff. So if someone wants help looking into their school board, they could write us and we could point them in how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I think we're about out of time here, so we'll let you get going. If you've got anything else you'd like to say, go for
That's
it.
it. Don't be too cautious. That's it. Okay?
All right.
And parents, it's everything.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And so, again, Mr. Pollack, thank you so much for taking the time. And
Okay.
we'll let you get back to your day, and don't get too rained out by the hurricane.
No, I'm nowhere near the hurricane.
Oh.
Hurricane north in the Panhandle. I'm in southern Florida, so we don't even. That was just a little rain we got. It rains every day in Florida, but we're nowhere near the
Bet it
hurricane.
does.
But I got hammered pretty hard.
All right. Well, again,
All right.
thank you
Yeah.
very much. And again, good luck with everything that you're working on.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.